National motocross rider Rob Herring tells us about when he started racing and the commitment to continue at the top of one of the toughest sports around.
I first started racing motocross when I was 9, which was around about 1978 in South Africa, and I did my schoolboy racing out there. I would come over once a year to do the main British Championships from about 81, 82 onwards, and then when I was 15 I turned adult in South Africa in the 250 class, and then I thought, well, I want to go, to the Grand Prix and go and race in Europe. So naturally my grandparents were from here and still living here. My parents were English anyway, so we came back to England in '86, my first full season. At the time I was 17, and I think I jumped straight into the British Championship and was, top two nearly every weekend, which was basically unheard of really from such a youngster at the time. I picked up a factory ride for Yamaha, direct from the Yamaha factory for 1987, and that was my first year in the GPs. I went straight into the 250 Grand Prix and had my best finish that I've ever had, a 5th place.
I mean, looking back on those days, I mean, as you said, you came to Great Britain in awe of some of the names that you recognised, Thorpe, Nicol and many of the other great riders at that time. Any other sort of youngster that might decide maybe to come over from South Africa or from any country, or even youngsters here in the UK, I mean, what's your best advice for them now?
Best advice is is not to get too awestruck. Don't set your sights on those people. You have to set your sights beyond them. Because if you set your sights on them, you're only going to get to that level. You've got to look further than where they are. If you really want to succeed and push the limits, then you've got to look further than where they are at that current time. Don't be afraid. It's very easy to look down the start line and think, oh, the so-and-so and this guy and that guy, and you start putting yourself in negative frame of mind. Just be very positive about it. At the end of the day, everyone is equal. It's on the racetrack. Everyone's got 2 arms, 2 legs. So there's nobody out there that's better than anybody else, and it just comes down to your natural ability on the bike and how much work you've done, to prepare yourself. So if you're confident, you've prepared yourself, and you're confident about your ability, then just be positive and get on with the job.
86 was the start of the Rob Herring era in British motocross. I mean, you moved on then from 86, 87, 88, 89, 125 championships, 250 championships.
Yep. I'm trying to think when I won my first British Championship. I won my first British Championship meetings back in '86. I didn't win a championship overall. I won the support class championship in '86, which doesn't really count for a lot, and I don't credit that as being one of my British Championship wins. My first British Championship title was in '89. I won the 250 British Championship in '89 after a good battle with Jamie Dobb. And then 1990 I won the 125, which was again a good battle with Jamie Dobb. We swapped championships that year. And then 91 and 92 I won both the 125 and the British Championship, 125 and the 250 British Championships, and I think I finished 2nd in the open class. 91 I was close to doing the triple, and then I had a couple of years off, and I won the Open Class Championship in 96 and the British Supercross Championship in 97, 98 and 99, but still finishing sort of in the top 3 in the Open Class as well, and the other championships that I rode in the in-between years. So I've always been up there, apart from being out through injury. I've been in the top 3 in the British Championship almost every year since 1986.
I mean, worldwide, many top riders throughout the Grand Prix world, as they say in motocross, have considered you to be one of the fastest men on 2 wheels in motocross, if only you could stay on the wheels.
Yeah, that's been said a lot. Certainly in my younger days, I think with the speed that I had, my speed aspect of my racing was very, very high. On my day I could beat anybody in the world, and it didn't come down to my fitness, it just came down to whether I'd stay on the bike or not. And quite often I'd throw it away just by a lapse of concentration. As the years went on, then you start to become more experienced, you start to get your concentration right, but then your speed goes slightly. So, the stage I'm at the moment, I'm not quite as fast as what I was back in the late 80s, but certainly I've got more experience, and I think I'm staying on because of my experience. But yeah, I was the fastest in the world at quite a few points. You know, I beat the Americans outdoors. I beat Johnson in '87 or in '88 in the Motocross to Nations. But it's always been that lapse of concentration that's let me down. The silly little crashes that let me down. But if I could have just got that right, which is not an easy thing, because there's no definite cure to staying on the bike, but I think if I could have managed to sort that aspect of my racing out, then maybe I could have been world champion. You never know. But everything in hindsight is always it's easy to say in hindsight. But yeah, I should have stayed on the bike a bit more. I should use that super glue, bit stronger super glue.
Possible youthful enthusiasm with no fear.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, when you're young, you've got before you've had too many injuries, you don't fear crashing, you don't fear getting injured. That is just part of racing.
I mean, coming to racing, to become a top national and international rider, there's certain elements that are needed to be followed even before you just get the bike out the van. And one of the first things are, of course, we look at diet. I mean, tell us what a normal Rob Herring diet would be in preparation to a British Championship or a Grand Prix meeting?
Well, in preparation for a meeting, then I start carbo loading, which is taking in carbohydrates 3 to 4 days before the event. So, but especially the Grand Prix, when you use so much energy, you have to make sure you eat the right foods, otherwise you'll end up with no energy. But generally speaking, my race diet doesn't differ too much from my normal diet. I eat very low fat foods. I'm one that I watch my fat intake a lot, although saturated fat I watch a lot. I try not to take too much saturated fat in. But I eat carbohydrates, protein and fat is where you get your energy from. So you have to eat all three. I'm big on vegetables, which are iron. You've got to eat a lot of fresh veg, a lot of fresh fruit. Eat your pasta, your meat. A lot of people have problems if they're vegetarian. It has been known that people who are vegetarian and sports people do have problems with iron deficiencies. So if you are vegetarian, take some supplements. If not, red meat, chicken, fish for your protein, things like that. I mean, the healthier you can eat, the better. The more vegetables you can eat, the better as well. But try and definitely, 2 or 3 days before an event, start eating a lot of pasta, chicken, fish, potatoes, baked potatoes, bread, things like that are high in carbohydrate to get your energy levels up. And then even after training or after you're racing, you need to take at least sort of 100 grams of carbohydrate again. So you can get things like carbohydrate drinks, you can get these little snack bars, high carbohydrate snack bars. Eat straight after, within half an hour of having a strenuous exercise, to put the energy back into your body to help you recover. Otherwise you'll just deplete your resources and go into the next race again having not recovered. So it's important to recover, get your energy back again after a race, and keep drinking fluid. So you have to make sure you drink enough beforehand so you won't dehydrate. But that's one aspect which is really, really important.
Training wise, I mean, you spend a reasonable amount of time in gymnasiums. I mean, take us through a normal Rob Herring training routine.
In my normal routine at the moment, because it's pre-season, so you're in the winter time, this is the time to do most of your work. Once the racing starts, it's too late then to do too much training, because you're riding a bike is the most important thing. But certainly now I go into a gym, I'll spend 5 minutes warming up, 5 minutes stretching, get your muscles warm, and you need to stretch so that by the time you go and exercise, you're not going to strain any muscles or pull anything. So that part of it is quite often overlooked as well. But I go into gym, I don't go on a treadmill anymore, I don't run because of my knees. I've had problems with my knees, but I go into a cycle, and I'll cycle between 35 and 45 minutes at a certain heart rate. Normally when I work out these days, I work out to my heart. I work in a certain zone, training zone, and I probably work at 35 to 45 minutes in about 75% range, 80% range, and then I go on and do some weights. I'm not too heavy on the weights. I prefer to use lighter weights and higher repetitions because it gives you stamina. Whereas if you use higher weights with low repetitions, it builds your strength up. And I've always found that my strength is pretty good. I've always been strong, and I don't struggle in that aspect, but I do struggle with my stamina. So I lessen the weights and do more repetitions and more sets. Shoulder press, your back, your thighs and your legs are really important because you're on your legs so much riding. So it's good to work your thighs. But the cycling's working that as well anyway. So when I'm doing my cycling, I tend to work more on my upper body with my weights, and not so much on my legs, because the things I do, cycling and step machine works your legs anyway. So I'll do that, I'll work on my stomach sit-ups, and then I'll maybe go onto the step machine. Go onto the step machine for say half an hour, again at a certain pulse rate. But this time I might do some sprinting. You know, every 2 minutes I'll do a 30-second sprint, okay, and then after your 30-second sprint you cool down again, go back to your original heart rate, and then after the next couple of minutes you do another sprint. So just to up the pace, otherwise I find your body gets used to working at one level and it can't push it over that level, but you need to push your body at a certain time so your body can push above, you know, a certain level. So, you know, during a race you might need the extra effort for a lap to push it to get past somebody, but if your body's not used to putting that extra effort in, you know, you'll suffer and you won't physically be able to do it. My best advice is you need to get with somebody that can point you in the right direction. Somebody that's, you know, that's already been there, that knows the shortcuts. See if there's somebody that might be able to give you a hand. Somebody with experience. Don't just ask Joe Bloggs, who's been spectating at races for you know. Speak to the riders. You know, don't be afraid to go and ask questions. You know, we all like to see riders come up through the ranks, and it'd be nothing greater than, you know, saying, look, you know, I helped him to get where he is today. So definitely try and get some good advice.
Well, with Rob Herring changing back to the 250 class for this year, we'll be keeping a watchful eye on his progress.